a very happy Hanukkah. We are learning the book of Mishlei, and we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. All right, we started learning the book of Mishlei, which is called in English Proverbs, and is really very much lessons for life, mostly about character and the way in which we should conduct ourselves. So we're in chapter 1, in verse 8. About Shma beni musar avicha ve'al titosh torat imecha. Listen, my son, to the teachings of your father. Ve'al titosh torat imecha. Do not abandon the lessons of your mother. And commentaries explain that Shma beni musar avicha means do not abandon the lessons that God gave you. Ve'al titosh torat imecha. Do not abandon the lessons that imecha here is Knesset Israel, your nation. That's something that you should stay with. Another explanation that's given is Shma beni musar avicha. Listen to the harsher lessons of your father, meaning the lessons that are associated with the laws, the studies, things that are really specific, the mitzvot. Those are things you should listen to. However, do not abandon the instructions for life, the character-affiliated lessons that your mother gives you. Next, because they are an adornment, they're a glory to you. If you keep the mitzvot, it is a glory to you. Like jewels, like a necklace on your neck. Now we come to one of the most famous and meaningful lessons that Shlomo gives. It's also given in a very strong way. It's interesting because we just said Shma beni musar avicha. We spoke about musar avicha. Also, Shlomo addresses the Jewish people always as Shma beni. So it's interesting. He addresses the Jewish people or whoever's reading his book as Shma beni musar avicha. But avicha is not just your father; it is also the person who's teaching you. So it says that the bani meilu talmidim. Often, the people you teach, it's considered like your children. So Shema beni musar avicha. Listen to the lessons of your teacher, and do not abandon those lessons that come from your mother. And now he comes and tells you a very strong warning. It's actually shocking how strong his language is. B'ni, this is pasuk yud, the 10th pasuk. B'ni, im yefatucha chataim al toveh. If sinful people try and convince you, they try and seduce you to join them, al toveh, do not join them. Im yomru, if they tell you, lecha itanu, come with us, and you wouldn't believe that he would have to say this, but he says the people tell you, nelcha. They say, let's ambush someone. They tell you, why don't you come and with us, and we will ambush someone and we will get them. We are going to catch someone who's a naki. He's clean, he's innocent, and we will try and get them. Pasuk Yudbet, nivle'em ki she'ol chaim. We will swallow them like Sheol, which is in many cases given as the example for hell. It's nivle'em ki she'ol chaim. We'll swallow them utmimim ki odei bo, and we will completely consume them. So Shlomo HaMelech is speaking about the following: if a gang tries to convince you to join them and says, "Listen, come with us, let us ambush someone and take them and completely swallow them," if they tell you to do such a thing, we will find everything. We will find every treasure. We will become very rich by taking them. We will fill our house with spoils. And we will give you the same share as us. So we'll have one account. Shlomo HaMelech is speaking about the following situations. If someone comes to you and says, come with us, and you will join us, and together we will ambush someone else and completely destroy them and completely take over everything they have, do not listen. And Shlomo HaMelech says you shouldn't do this. Now you wonder, why does he need to say this? Why does Shlomo HaMelech need to say, don't listen to someone who's about to completely destroy another person? Obviously, that's not something most people would consider. So commentaries really wonder, what is it that he's saying here? And one of the explanations the Malbim gives is that you should not. He starts from the biggest thing, because it's to show you. He wants to show you that if you are thinking of joining such a crowd, then obviously you need his instruction, but it's also coming to say that is something that should include everything. I'm warning you of the worst, but actually that's also going to teach you lessons in the lightest of situations. And now he says, Beni. Again, often he addresses people as Beni, my son. Do not go in the same path as them. Stay away from their path. And that's why he uses such an extreme case. Not only should you not join crooks and robbers and thieves, but you shouldn't even get on the path that led them there. When you see someone like Bernie Madoff, when you see someone who is very, very sinful, he does really, really bad things, don't ask yourself, how do I not end up in prison with an 800-year sentence? Ask yourself, how did that person get there? How did he begin his path? How did he get to the point where he even does such a thing? And that's what he says, Mina raglecha minetivatam. Stay away from that entire path. Because their legs run to bad. And they end up spilling blood. So again, Shlomo HaMelech is giving here a warning for something huge. He's saying, do not join someone who is going to completely devour someone else. If someone comes to you and says, come, join us, we're going to rob someone, we're going to take away everything they have, and you will split the spoils with us. Shlomo HaMelech says, do not join them. Not only should you not join them, don't even get on that path. Ask yourself, what is the path that led them there? What is it that brought them to that point? And how do I stay off of that? So in a way, this is something that applies to every person. Even though you're not a crook, even though you're not an armed robber, ask yourself, how did the armed robber get to that point? How did that person even engage in such things? That's what Shlomo HaMelech is saying. He's saying, don't come close to the path of those who end up in very bad places. So it's not about how do I not become a Bernie Madoff now. It's not how do I not become the worst thief in the world. It's about how is it that I don't even come close to the path of such people. And now we come to one of the most interesting metaphors in Pasuk Yud Zayin. Have you ever seen the picture of a bird trap? So basically, the way a bird trap is made is there's this space with some food, and the bird sees it and it walks closely. Now you ask yourself, what's the bird thinking when it walks close up? What's the bird thinking when it's coming closer and closer to that trap and it sees the food? What's the bird thinking? The first thing it thinks is, wow, free food. I don't need to go work. I don't need to try hard. Free food. However, it's not free food. This is food that's going to cost it its life. Ki chinam mezora hareshet beinei kol bal kanaf. The net, the trap looks free to the person, to the bird, to every bird. But it's not free. It's going to cost its life. That's exactly what happens when someone thinks they're going to take advantage of another person and hurt them. Actually, when the bird goes to take the spoils, to take the food, what it's actually doing is it's trapping itself. They're actually ambushing themselves. When someone goes and they seek to hurt someone economically or in whatever way it is, and they think that they're winning, they think they're gaining, they think they're getting something from it. No, they're not getting something from it. Actually, they're like the bird who walks straight into the trap and says, "Oh, look, free food." Always, before you do something, ask yourself, am I going to get, am I trapping myself like the bird or not? A lot of times you go to the store, you see they have a deal. You get a free this for half the price. And if that's something you didn't need, you paid a half a price that you didn't need to pay. So you actually paid 50% more than you should have if you bought some piece of junk that you don't need in your house and you bought it. Then even if it was 50% off, you lost 50%. So too, if a person steals something, hurts someone, it looks like it's free to them, but it's actually, they're paying a huge, huge cost. They're paying a huge cost for that. והם לדמם יאהבו יצפנו לנפשותם. פסוק י"ט, פרק א', פסוק י"ט, verse 19. כן אורחות כל בוצע בצע, את נפש בעלה ביקח. So too, this is the path of every person who acts dishonestly in business and takes something from someone else. Actually, they're not taking from someone else, they are trapping themselves. When someone is going to commit a crime, to do something bad, they are actually hurting themselves. That's what he's saying. Actually, he is about to hurt himself more than anyone else. More than anyone else, he'll be hurting himself. And now we come to another very beautiful metaphor that is very, very famous. Chochmot b'chutz tarona. The wisdom gives its voice outside. And this is such an important lesson. Often people say, oh, where can I get the wisdom? Where can I learn? Chochmot b'chutz tarona. The wisdom gives itself in public. If someone is telling you something in a secret, it's something you should often be skeptical of. Similarly, the Navi, I believe it's Isaiah or Jeremiah, say, Lo baseter dibarti. When God spoke to the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, he didn't speak in the middle of the night, in the dark of the night. He didn't whisper it in a way that no one can hear. It was a revelation. It was spoken to everyone. It was spoken publicly. Chochmot b'chutz tarona. Wisdom, legitimate lessons, those are said in public. If someone's doing something in quiet, that's already something you should be suspicious of. So, the wisdom is walking outside, the right path, the truth is not hiding. It's not something you need to look for very deep. It is speaking out in the street. It is going to stand out in the market. It's going to speak. It will stand up at the opening to the gates of every city, and it's going to speak there. And the wisdom speaks out in public. The wisdom doesn't hide itself. The wisdom is there for everyone to consume. And that's the idea of chochmot b'chutz tarona. It's always there in the open. And the rabbis say also this is a lesson. If a person knows Torah, if a person is knowledgeable, then they should give that knowledge over to other people. The chokhmah of the Torah should always be out there. It should always be given to other people. And here's what the chokhmah says. Look at Pasuk Chaf Aleph. You can find it on the Sefaria or on the Chabad link. Ad matay p'tayim te'evu peti v'ratzon chamdu lahem uchsilim yisneu da'at. The wisdom is out there in the open. I saw someone once say, you wake up in the morning often and you ask yourself, what was I doing last night, right? Sometimes, especially with you use the internet, it's so easy, right? You get caught up, you look at this news, you look at that news, and you wake up in the morning and you ask yourself, why did I stay up so late? And a lot of things that are wrong, you wake up the next morning, you're like, obviously that was a wrong thing. You know, the German people after World War II woke up, and after the craziness with which they behaved, they destroyed a half a world, they woke up and they said, what did we just do? Chochmot b'chutz tarona. The wisdom is always the obvious thing. It always speaks out. It always says, ad matay p'tayim, until when will the people who are unlearned going to love that? Until when will the cynical people love that? Wisdom is always something that you can speak to everyone, something that resonates with everyone. If you want to say something crooked, that's something you have to convince, you have to swindle. Wisdom is there. It's the straight thing. It's the honest thing. Honesty always resonates with people. People always take the honest word. It's an easy thing to sell. Honesty is easy to sell. Crooked things are not easy to sell. And so the wisdom goes out in the street, King Solomon teaches, and it says, it's the wisdom is speaking and it's saying, until when will people go out there and seek the silliness? Tashuvu letochachti, now pasuk chaf gimel, tashuvu letochachti, return to my teaching. Hina bi alachem ruchi, I will teach you what I have to say. Odiet varayetchem, let me inform you of what I have to say. And as easy and accessible as the wisdom is, it isn't always listened to. So it continues and it says, I try and speak to you, I try and express myself, but you won't always listen. I will always try and inform you of what I have to say. Pasuk Kaf Daled. Yan karati vatemaenu. Since I have already called out, I tried speaking to you. Yan karati vatemaenu. Natiti yadi ve'en makshiv. I even stretched out my hand. Now, where do we remember the term "I stretched out my hand"? When God inflicts Pharaoh and the Egyptians with heavy punishments, it says that it was done with a heavy hand. Also, so it says God has done enough. Enough has happened in the world. And people need to listen, but often people don't listen. And we're about to see actually a word that is a very sad word. It's a very famous word, and it's the word that ultimately became the word for Holocaust. Shoah. The word Shoah means darkness, and that's the word that was chosen after the Holocaust as the unique word for what the Jewish people have been through in the years 1939 and 1945. So the wisdom says, listen to me, because if you don't listen to me, terrible things will happen. You disregarded all my advice. You did not heed my admonitions. You didn't listen to what I have to say. It says also if you laugh at what I have to say, I'll be laughing when things are not good. And this is really a difficult pasuk because we have the same problem in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. When the Jewish people are going to be out in exile and when they're going to suffer, and finally you come back to God and realize that what they did was wrong, it says, Ve'estarti et panai, va'afani my face at that time, and I will not answer you. So there's an element of you can't just snap right back into the right thing. When some mistakes, you can say, you know what, I'm sorry, I did the wrong thing, I made a mistake, I apologize. That's going to be the end of it. However, there are other mistakes where a person does something and it's not reversible. It's not something that can be easily undone. And it says, Gamani eschak, even I am going to laugh because the wisdom is going to be like, listen, I spoke to you. I let you know. They will call out and I will not answer because I tried to warn them. Since they did not only stay away from his wisdom, but hated wisdom. They chose to despise wisdom and have contempt for it. Therefore, I'm not really interested in having an immediate snap back where they can come right back. And they eat from the fruit of what they've done. When you see the fruit of what you've done, when you see what the consequences are, then you'll be regretful. Because the lightheartedness of the wicked, that's what causes its destruction. It's taking things in a not serious way. That's what causes its destruction. And the person who listens to me will dwell safely, and he's actually the person that will be able to be calm and restful. That is the end of Perek Aleph. Be'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow we will continue Perek Bet, the second chapter of Mishlei, where Shlomo continues to impart his wisdom on to those who are listening in his beautiful book of Mishlei. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for listening. Bezrat Hashem, you should have an excellent day. Have a lovely, lovely day.